Hey, everybody. Hope you are doing well. Good to have you here on If You Don't Like That Open Forum. We can talk about NFL training camps. It looks like the Jets got away with what was a couple of tense moments and hours when Justin Fields suffered an injury. And there's a lot of panic going on, obviously. I mean, it's the Jets, and you have a new coach and Aaron Glenn. But Fields looks like he is going to be okay. He'll miss a little bit of time, but not much, according to everything that I'm reading, with a dislocated toe on his right foot. Aaron Glenn today actually saying that he was day-to-day. But I would think he might miss a week just based on some of the things that I'm reading. So it's not devastating for the Jets as he is on the depth chart as the number one quarterback, which means that now Tyrod Taylor will get a lot more of the work. So, again, it's July. It's July. You don't want to panic, but there were a couple of tense moments there on the Jets practice field and everything else when he had to use a cart to get off the field. So it's Justin Fields. Looks like he's going to be okay. All right, looks like he's going to be okay. All right, what do you want to talk about today? NFL? Anything else that's going on in the world of sports? Something I wanted to talk about. And I always use the term common sense. I'm a big common sense guy. Like, we get caught up in all of this nonsense. And to me, common sense doesn't factor into things that would make it much easier, right? Common sense. So I did a rant on this today about Sac State trying to get into the FBS and becoming and having big time college football. And I joked about this years ago with John Volek when John came to coach Sac State. And just so you know, I'm a huge John Volek fan. He's a great man. Love the man. I can't say anything bad about John Volek. His heart's in the right place. It's always been in the right place. And I'm a big fan of John Volek. So I want to put that out there. But I was interviewing John right after he got the job at Sacramento State. And I was interviewing him for TV. And I'm out at Sac State. And he said that his goal was to make Sacramento State the Florida State of the West. And I laughed. And then I go, John, come on. The Florida State of the West? Come on. Let's get serious here. And he was serious, but then, and we joked about that. That was my introduction to John Volek. So I see politicians trying to enable Sac State to become a football, right, bowl subdivision team. And I'm looking at all the money that apparently the boosters have raised and committed, and we can go on and on and on. But common sense doesn't factor into this, right? Common sense doesn't factor into Sacramento has never, ever been a good football community for college. Pros, yes. I talked about this when I moved to Sacramento in '87. I was amazed at how bad the overnights were, talking about the ratings for college football. Sacramento didn't watch college football. Period. Ohio State's playing Michigan, not watching. Auburn's playing Alabama, not watching. Cal's playing Stanford, not watching. USC's playing Washington, not watching. I can go on and on and on. And I look at their stadium, which right now would be a downgrade for many high school stadiums in Texas, for instance. I look at the fact that there aren't enough college football fans in Sacramento. All right. And I'm so happy that Dorian just chimed in here because he went to Sac State and played football there. And he said, I hope the football team has a successful season along with men's basketball. I work out there every morning, and the new nest is looking really nice. I miss being an athlete on campus, Dorian. But Sac State doesn't have enough fans. It's been a commuter school. I know they're trying to change that and become more of a non-commuter school, but it is what it is. And you're going to think about bringing big-time college football to Sac State? Like, why? It doesn't work now, in all due respect. And you want to try to go big time? How can you go big time when there's not a big time fan base? How can you go big time when there's not a big time stadium? How can you go big time when, quite frankly, the interest doesn't warrant going big time? Like, what good is it if you had the ability to build a beautiful football facility and have, quote unquote, big time college football and nobody cares? Like, what good is that? What good is that? It just doesn't make sense to me. Again, I go back to common sense. Common sense. Like Florio doesn't have any common sense. Like, he has no common sense. Kuminga for Dario, Devin, and a couple of picks. Not sure if the Warriors would take that. Doesn't sound appealing. Again, stop wasting my time with the nonsense. Good Lord. Seriously. Why don't you call up Oklahoma City and see if they'll take the same package for Shea Gilgeous-Alexander while you're at it? Unbelievable. Seriously. If you build it, they will come. No, they won't. No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. You're absolutely 100% wrong. Period. You're wrong. All right, my thoughts on the Christian Wilkins release from the Raiders. Was it a good move or a mem move? By the way, they're appealing this with the NFL Players Association. It appears they were not happy with his lack of rehab from the Jones fracture, and they owed him a lot of guaranteed money. And so they felt that he wasn't close to getting back onto the field, and so they released him. This is going to an appeals. This will be heard. Again, the NFL Players Association has filed a grievance. It's going to be very interesting to see how that all transpires. All right. When you say the new nest is looking really nice, can you expand on that for me, Dorian? When you say the new nest, thank you. Sac State moved to the Big West. Good move for basketball. I agree. And I said this on my rant this morning. Basketball makes sense for me because Sacramento's a basketball community. There's enough interest for college basketball, not for college football. All right. Dorian says Sacramento State football has to have a lot of successful seasons and Big Sky championships for them to be highly considered, despite all the dollar donors are willing to put up to get into the Pac-12. 100% spot on. I agree. I absolutely agree. Period. I know you meant Big West. I get that. Do I have thoughts on the passing of Hulk Hogan? Not really. I mean, an A-list celebrity, household name. 71, unfortunate, young, but that's it. All right. All Sacramento can sustain is the Kings, and even that we can't have success. I think they would sustain soccer too. I think what the Sacramento Republic has done has been quite a success story. And once the new stadium gets built in the rail yards, and I'm saying if, you could get MLS to Sacramento, I think that the fan base would support it very well. I personally think the MLS is expanding way too fast. I don't think there are enough good players to warrant it. I'm not an expert. I'm speaking this as a very, very casual observer. I don't watch the MLS. I think that's a problem, but I think Sacramento would support it fully. I think it would be a big time success based on what I've seen with the Republic. That's for sure. The Nest is being expanded into the Well relocation center for students and alumni that I use most mornings for them to host NCAA games, basketball, etc. All right. Okay. So, Dorian, I want to ask you this question. I said on my rant this morning that if I were Sacramento State, I would build a basketball facility right on campus, a new facility that seats roughly 7,500. Okay? You can have a little less, a little more, but I said roughly 7,500. Build a beautiful on-campus facility. Use the momentum that you have with Mike Bibby being there and Shaq. Because let's not be stupid. Again, common sense. If Mike Bibby has success at Sacramento State, he'll be gone in a short period of time because he'll move on to a bigger program. Okay? Use the momentum that you have right now to build, and again, I don't know anything about the Nest, into, as you said, the Well. So when you say expanded, that means a lot of different things to me. I keep hearing about all the money that the boosters have in Sacramento State and this and that. All right, you know what? Show me. You have the money? Build, okay? You said that's what the new Nest is. It's going to be connected to the Well. So you're telling me that they're building, you said expanding. See, that's the difference here in terminology. Are you talking about a new facility from the ground up that will house the basketball team? That it will be a state of the art. When I mean state of the art, I'm not talking about a state of the art NBA arena, but a good college arena. Is that what you're telling me, Dorian? So that we're on the same wavelength here? Do I see Sacramento getting a WNBA team in the next 10 to 15 years? No, I don't. It would have already happened. It would have already happened. The old Nest was basically a high school gym. I was in that gym many times. It was, absolutely. No question. No doubt. No doubt about that. So you're telling me that they are building it's new from the ground up, and it's going to be, do you have any idea what the seating capacity would be for that, Dorian? Just curious. Because to me, that makes a lot of sense. That's common sense. Football going big time is not common sense because a couple of boosters have nothing to do with their money and they want big time college football in Sacramento. That's stupid. I'm sorry. I'm just calling it the way it is. That's stupid because that's not going to work. There's not a market for it. All right? There's not a market for it. There's just not. I mean, you got to be realistic about this. Again, I go back to common sense, okay? I go back to common sense. There's nothing over a large period of time that would convince me that college football is going to be a success in Sacramento. It's not happening. It's not a success really anywhere in Northern California, okay? Let's just call it the way it is. It's just not. I mean, Jim Soker was great at UC Davis in that football program, and they built a nice college football stadium. But it is what it is, right? They're not big-time college football. They know what they are. Okay? And just because you have some players that go from your program into the NFL doesn't mean you're big time college football. That's the way it is. Grant, it's really amazing the strong following that the Golden Knights have had in such a short period of time. Much credit to building that team. And I'm very proud to say that one of my best friends on earth put that whole team together. And he walked me through the process. I was in constant contact with him about his philosophy of building a team. He did the exact same thing in Washington with the Capitals. I'm going to get him on my podcast. He drafted Alex Ovechkin and went to Russia to meet OV and his family. And it was an interesting story that I would love for him to tell. It's great. All right. I agree, Grant, on the football aspect. Yeah. What the Knights have done in Vegas is truly remarkable. Sold out every single game. Great success. Imagine being a Sharks fan, right? And seeing that the Vegas Golden Knights come in their first year and do something that the Sharks have never been able to do, and that's play in a Stanley Cup final. Think about that. How frustrating must that be to be a Sharks fan and see an expansion team go to the Stanley Cup finals in their first year and then 5 years later win the Stanley Cup? That's unbelievable if you're a Sharks fan, is it not? All right, here we go. Yes and no, but mostly no. They are expanding the well and making it house basketball, volleyball, and gymnastics. I'm not sure what the seating capacity will be, but way more than 1,025 from the old nest. All right. So they're okay. Now, thank you for explaining that, Dorian. You're awesome. All right. Yes, podcast with George, please. I'll do that. George would be happy to do it. I'd go to a Gold Miners game before a Hornets game. Yeah, me too. Too bad they're not in existence anymore. George McPhee is a big-time culture guy. He's all about culture. And if you don't have a good culture, you have no chance of winning. And when George builds teams, he thinks about culture, culture, culture. And I've been on the phone with him. Excuse me. I've been in his office when he's on the phone with agents. I've heard how he talks to agents. I've been in his car when he's got an agent or a top executive on a speakerphone, and I hear how he goes about his business, and I'm just so freaking impressed at how he does everything. I learned a lot from him. Culture. And that's why I always said you'll never win with DeMarcus Cousins, because it's impossible to have a good culture with him. And a lot of that came from George. And what I watched and learned and my experience of being around the Kings for decades. I know what works and I know what doesn't work. Well, let me rephrase that. I know what doesn't work. Okay? I know what doesn't work. I may not know what works, but I know what doesn't work. That's the one thing I am 100% certain of. I know when something is not going to work. College football in Sacramento is not going to work. I'm talking about big time, quote unquote, college football. Not going to work. All right. Looks like around 3,500 seats for the new nest. Okay. Okay. The new football stadium will have around 25,000 seats. And where's the new stadium going to be built, Dorian? And when's it going to be built? And who's going to build it? Like, where's it going to be built? When's it going to be built? And when's it going to be ready for play? By the way, no disrespect, but you can't have big-time college football with 25,000 seats, okay? You can have good college football, but you can't have big-time college football, okay? I'm sorry. That's not big time college football. What are the best attributes an announcer needs, and what are the trappings they need to avoid? That's a fabulous question. Fabulous question. I think there are several attributes that are essential: passion, inflection in your voice, the ability to, and you got to remember, radio and TV are completely different. They're like two different mediums. I personally prefer doing play by play on the radio over TV. I always have. You know, as much as I loved my 32 years of announcing for the Sacramento Kings, and I loved it, my three favorite years were probably the 3 years that I did the games on radio in the 90s. That was a great joy for me. My greatest memories of Kings broadcasting, really, are the playoff games that I did in the 2000s on radio, because every May, Gary Gerald would go do the Indy 500, the qualifying and the practice every weekend. And when the Kings were good, they were playing every weekend in May, and I did all those games on radio by myself. And that was the most joy, the most fun that I've ever had broadcasting. And there's a segment on YouTube that Dave Grashoff put up, who's just a phenomenal talent. Cameraman at Channel 13 was with me, and he's just great. And I was doing the game by myself in Dallas, and he asked if he could put a microphone on me because he wanted my voice as he was shooting highlights of the game. I said, yeah, sure. And he put it on YouTube. And I actually go back and watch. I'm going to tell you what it's called right now. I actually go back and watch it from time to time because I enjoyed that moment so much, and I love reliving it. All right. It's called DG. All right. Dave Grashoff, Grant Napier Calls on YouTube. And it's to this day something that I go back and I watch. And I'm proud, and I don't normally say this, I'm really proud of the way I called the game when I go back and listen to myself. And I had Bobby Jackson on after the game, and you can actually see it. There's a clip of me as the Kings are going to a timeout. Dave actually zooms in on me, and it was late in the game. It was in the fourth quarter. And you can see all the empty water bottles in front of me. And I'll never forget this. So I have Bobby Jackson on, right? And he's looking at all of the empty water bottles and says like, damn, you thirsty, man? I'm like, Bobby, I was working almost as hard as you were, buddy. Because you can see, when you get a chance, go check out that video on YouTube. Like, you've got to have energy. Like, to me, if you're going to be good radio play-by-play, you better have energy. You better have energy. And you better be able to go with the flow of the game, whether the game is really good or really bad. If it's really exciting or not. You need to be able to talk very fast, and you got to be able to explain everything that's going on, and you need to know when to talk slow. And you need to know when to be animated. And you need to know when to get excited. And you need to know when to remain calm. And that is such a key. It's called inflection, and I learned that from Marv Albert. And here's something else that you need to know on radio. And I tell young students this all the time. You need to be able to explain in very simple terms the same thing 5 to 10 different ways. All right? Mike Bibby, right hand, as it comes across the midcourt line. Now Mike Bibby will take the ball across. Bibby now accelerates from the backcourt to the front court. You know, you better be able to say the same thing over and over again in a different way so that the listener does not get bored. You need to have different nuances for the exact same thing so that the listener isn't hearing the same thing and it's not repetitive over and over. You also, and you can go back, and this is something I'm proud of, and I'm glad you asked that question. And this is not about me. I'm actually speaking now for any aspiring broadcasters out there that are thinking of getting into play-by-play. Don't tell me what's already happened. Tell me what is happening. Announce the game to me in the present tense. Okay? And basketball is very easy to tell whether the play-by-play man is on his A-plus game. Are you announcing the ball going into the basket as it's going through the basket or within a half second? Or are you telling me that the basket was made after I've already heard the crowd get excited and cheer 2 seconds after the basket was made? I don't want that. Announce the game in present tense. Tell me when the ball's in the air. Tell me when the basket is good, when it's good. Don't tell me it was good 2 seconds after it happened. Now, occasionally that will happen because you might be in the middle of a sequence where you can't announce in present tense. But 90% of the time, I need to hear the game announced in the present. To me, Marv Albert was the best I've ever heard at that. Now, I grew up on the East Coast. I didn't get a chance to listen to Chick Hearn like maybe many of you, or Bill King, which he was great. Announce the game in present tense. Now, what are some of the things that you need to avoid? Don't try to be somebody else. Develop your own style, okay? Don't try to use my catchphrases. Use your own catchphrases. Don't try to be Grant Napier or don't try to be Gary Gerald. Try to be you. Develop your own style, and that only happens with a lot of repetition. Those are some of the things that you have to have, and that's a start. Practice, practice, practice. All right? Thank you, man. You were the greatest Kings announcer, and that's not up for discussion. If you don't like that opinion, you don't like NBA basketball. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I love announcing. My favorite sport to announce was hockey. Loved hockey. I did big time college hockey for 6 years, and I loved it. All right. Loved college hockey, and I loved announcing hockey. And I missed that. When you were on the broadcast, it was the most fun I've ever had watching. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. But I loved announcing hockey. And one of the biggest thrills of my career was when I got a chance to fill in for Randy Hahn on Sharks TV, and I did some Sharks games. And I did one of the games down in LA at the Great Western Forum when Wayne Gretzky was playing. Great thrill for me. I'll never forget it. Just great. Hey, don't forget about New Works Plumbing. They've got a fix for you. They're available around the clock 24/7 for your plumbing needs and repairs. Go to sackserviceplumbing.com or newworksplumbing.com, NEWWRXplumbing.com. New Works Plumbing, they've got a fix for you. They're awesome. And again, they're available around the clock 24/7 for all of your plumbing needs. New Works Plumbing, they've got a fix for you. One of my real joys is helping out young broadcasters. You've probably seen Nico on this site from time to time. He went to Oak Ridge High School. He reached out to me, I want to say his junior year, and was broadcasting and doing things on the campus station. And he would periodically reach out to me and I would help him, and I think mentor him to a degree. I don't know what he would say, but I tried my best to help him. And we stayed in touch. And then he went to Syracuse. And I'm like, Nico, that is so freaking great. You know, really probably the top school in America you can go to. And Nico has improved so much and is so gung ho. This past summer, he was at Oakmont working for NBC at the U.S. Open. He was at their headquarters in Connecticut for the recent Olympics that he worked at. He's now doing baseball in the summer for a minor league team as he gets ready to start his senior year at Syracuse. He sends me his work all the time. As a matter of fact, he just sent me his recent work a couple of weeks ago, and I listened to it. He does hockey, he does baseball, he does basketball, he's done volleyball. I mean, the guy does everything, and his improvement has been rapid. And you're going to see Nico Horning. You're going to see that guy. Remember that name. He was at Edgewood at the celebrity golf tournament getting interviews. He's done a phenomenal job. I'm so happy for him. So I love that aspect of him, that he's such a hard worker. Grant, Rajon Rondo had a short time in Sacramento, but he had a bad character like Cousins. No, he didn't. He wasn't anything like DeMarcus Cousins. You don't know what you're talking about. Not even close. He was actually perfect in Sacramento. Worked his ass off. Was a good teammate. Played hard. Got ready for every game. Prepared for every game. You're wrong. Now, I don't know what he was like before that because I wasn't around him. But in Sacramento, not one problem, not one issue. Grant, the tomahawk chop is offensive, according to former SaberCats announcer Dan Dibley. Offensive to whom? Who's it offensive to, Cody? Like, I would want to know, who's Dan? How does that offend Dan? That's what I would like to know. And I know Dan. How does that offend Dan? I'm a Golden Knights fan. Pray that Grant comes to Vegas. Finger red number 1. I love going to the Knights games. I told you I was with George at his house in Summerlin with the Stanley Cup. He's like, Napes, the cup's going to be at my house. I need you here. I'm like, I'm there. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm there. I'm there. And they got their championship rings when I was there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the thing is so, I was just like, wow. And then I went to the first game where the unveiling of the championship banner and everything else. That was great. So it was pretty neat to be with George and both of us holding the Stanley Cup. You know, I met George as a freshman in college, and he's just a great human being. And just talk about work ethic. Wow. Wow. Who was the laziest but talented Kings player, and who was the hardest working but untalented player? Well, the latter part of that question, there were many. Many. Scott Pollard fits that category. And Scott would understand when I say untalented. Scott was a lunch pail, blue collar guy. Well, Scott would admit it too. He would admit that he got the most out of his career, and he outworked everybody. And Scott would tell you that. He outworked everybody. He didn't have the greatest talent in the world, but he had, you know, I said the biggest heart in the world, and he just had a heart transplant. And I know that might not be the right metaphor to use, but the reality is Scott outworked everybody. He outworked everybody. And there were other players. Jim Les was like that. Hardest working guy in the world. Loved Jim. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. I came across lazy players. No question about that. Last one there, first one to leave. Talented, but doesn't have the drive to become to the next level. I saw that a lot. Hey, folks, I want to tell you about Sunrise Landing in Calusa. If you are thinking of moving to a different location, Sunrise Landing, a new residential community in Calusa. You go to calusasunrise.com and you can check out everything that they have to offer with their beautiful models. And I love that there's no Mellorews and no homeowners. I don't know about you, but boy, that adds up, doesn't it? But no Mellorews, no homeowners there. And here's the other deal. Good location, adjacent to the Calusa Golf and Country Club, and good access. Like, it's easy to get to. I-5, Highway 45, Highway 20. It's all there for you. Sunrise Landing in Calusa. Go to calusasunrise.com and check out Sunrise Landing. If you had a chance, or if you didn't have a chance to check out Rhino earlier today on the King's Court, do so. All right. Belitza always felt so skilled, but seemed very mellow. He worked. He wasn't lazy. I can tell you that. He wasn't lazy. Nemanja was not lazy. I understand what you're saying about him, but he was not lazy. He was not. But yeah, you always come across different ends of the spectrum. Spud Webb worked his butt off. You also did the San Jose SaberCats as well, correct? I did the SaberCats for about 15 years. Yeah, I love doing the SaberCats. Did them on both radio and TV. I had a great time doing arena football. And that was when I had a lot of experiences going from coast to coast. I would do a Kings game on the West Coast, take a red eye, fly all the way to Tampa or New York or wherever, do a SaberCats game, fly back with the team to San Jose, stay on the plane as they cleaned it and got everything ready. And then the plane actually was kept at McClellan Air Force Base in Sacramento. So I would fly in the cockpit, because I love that, with the pilots, obviously, land at McClellan. And I'll never forget this. So at night, there were no runway lights at McClellan. So like when you're coming in to McClellan, you can't see it because there were no runway lights. The runway lights, and I don't know how it is now, back then were turned on from the cockpit. You know, we had headsets on, so I'm listening to the pilot tell me, it's like, yeah, I got to turn the lights on. And he would click his wheel like 2 or 3 times, and all of a sudden you see the lights go on the runway. And I'm like, this is the freaking, I'm like, wow. So I did that quite often, where I'd be on one coast one night, and I did this several times. Kings game, West Coast, arena football game, East Coast, Kings game the next night, West Coast. And I love doing that. I love being on different sides of the country, announcing different games and different sports. Like, I love that. Like, that just got me pumped up. Like, I love that. I was living my dream. I used to love doing that. I love doing the arena football. All right. Was I close to the Kings training staff like Pete Youngman, Al, B, and Connie? Yeah, they're family. Both of them, family. Family. The NBA is dead till October. Just have the Ben Simmons and Westbrook news, and that's it for 2 months. I don't know about that. I mean, there are trades too. How was Mitch off the court? Mitch was very introverted. Family man. You know, him and Julie and his family. I mean, he's a family man. Mitch was great, very quiet, very introverted, but very funny too. Maybe the very, very funny guy. A deadpan funny, though. Deadpan funny. Yes. But Mitch was a family guy. He was a family man. But hardworking, Mitch Richmond, yeah, you better believe he was hardworking. I always respected Rudy Gay. When he played for the Kings, he played hard. Always played hard. Unfortunately, he was a teammate with DeMarcus Cousins, and so that prevented him from excelling. I'll tell you one thing about Rudy. You could talk to Rudy like I could talk to anyone, and he would tell me stuff, and I would tell him stuff, and it was always a respectful conversation. I respect Rudy Gay 100%, and I know he respected me. And I'll never forget being on the floor at Boston after I went off on the team on my radio show. Then I went off on the general manager in the organization the night before the game. and Pete D'Alessandro walks onto the floor at the Boston Garden for the matinee game on New Year's Eve and starts screaming at me, and I had to tell him to calm down and we'll go in and talk like men in the stands. And then I'm standing on the court with Jerry, getting ready to do the game, and the team's behind me on warm-up lines, thanking me for what I said on the radio. And I had 3 assistant coaches, I think it was 3, walk onto the floor and pat me on the back and say thank you. Like, that's respect, man. I'm like, I was going through a rough time. I had a phone call with the president of the Kings. I got screamed at by the general manager. I mean, there's a lot of tension there. And I had the full support of the team and the coaches. That meant the world to me. That I'll never forget that. All the people that worked in the Kings, their training staff, Manny, great guy. Ramsey's at Kansas now. I don't know if you know that. He's the athletic, or the strength coach, rather, for the men's team at Kansas basketball with Bill Self. Do I still talk to Carmichael Dave? Yes, he's one of my best friends. In my opinion, Nick Stauskas was hazed and it went too far. Why did the Kings NBA permit the hazing of Nick Stauskas? I don't know. To this day, it's very puzzling to me. It was wrong. Wrong. It's unfortunate. But what's done is done. But that was extremely, extremely unfortunate. I watched it and I couldn't believe it. Very unfortunate. Terrible. That's why the franchise was so dysfunctional back then and so out of whack, because there was no accountability. None. No accountability. Like, you're going to allow that to go on? And DeMarcus was the worst. I mean, DeMarcus treated him like a dog. And there was one incident over in China that was, I watched it. I just couldn't believe it. And I couldn't believe his teammates didn't step in, coaches. I mean, it was awful. Now, he was suspended. Well, not suspended. The coach benched him for the next game, but that doesn't do anything. That was terrible. I watched it. Hey, Bennett's Prime Seafood and Steaks. And right now, their Taste of Summer. And I'll go over some of the specials and deals that you can get, whether it's Sacramento, Roseville, or the West Side Grill in Rockland at their Taste of Summer. 2 courses, a great starter, and a choice of 4 entrees for $30, or you can add a special dessert for $5 more. You have a choice from grilled salmon, chicken chimichurri, Sonoran beef enchiladas, or heirloom tomatoes, burrata, and shrimp. It's a great value, all right? They have a second menu, which is their lunchtime sandwich offers. They have some exciting new selections there, so check it out. Go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com. That's Bennett'sRestaurants.com. I saw a lot of stuff. You got to remember, I was around the team on a daily basis from 1988 on. So, I watched and saw a lot of stuff. See, this is what you don't understand. DeMarcus Cousins should have hired Mitch Richmond and consult to weekly to become professional with mindset. See, that's what you don't understand. I'm not even going to read the rest of it. You don't understand. The Kings did everything for the guy. Everything. They hired his high school coach to be with them. They did everything. Okay? They tried everything. He didn't listen to anybody. Didn't matter who you were. He was going to curse you out. He was going to be disrespectful if he didn't get his way. It didn't matter. Okay? He wouldn't have listened to Mitch Richmond. Come on now. You don't understand. It wouldn't have mattered. I keep on hearing, gee, the Kings didn't do enough. Oh, gee, the Kings were a bad organization. The Kings were a mess because of him. Don't you understand that? He was the biggest reason why they were a mess during his tenure. Not the only reason, the biggest reason. Wake up. Would you stop blaming he should have done this, he should have done that. They did everything for him. Everything. Literally everything. Didn't matter. Why do you think he couldn't stay with any other team after Sacramento? Why do you think New Orleans got rid of him? Why do you think Golden State got rid of him after 1 year? Why do you think Denver got rid of him after a few months? Why do you think he couldn't stick with any team in the NBA? Ask yourself that question. It's pretty obvious. I'm going to go back to the way I opened this show. Common sense. Use some common sense here, would you please? What was it like when Michael Jordan would play at Arco? Toughest ticket of the year to get. Spud would have been a global brand in this era. I agree with you. I totally agree with you. He would have been. In June 2015, DeMarcus Cousins used a cryptic tweet featuring snake and grass emojis to respond to rumors that George Karl, his coach with the Sacramento Kings, was trying to get him traded. George Karl had no chance to succeed before he even coached his first game because of DeMarcus Cousins. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen, the way DeMarcus disrespected George. Truly, to this day, one of the worst things I've ever seen. Beyond belief. Beyond belief. Terrible. You couldn't rewatch the China incident because it wasn't on video. So I'm not really sure what incident you're referring to. The incident that I'm referring to was not on video anywhere. I mean, it just wasn't. What did I think of Chris Jackson not saluting the flag? I got to know Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, and he was unbelievably quiet, extremely bright, and his religious beliefs were such that he followed them 100%. During Ramadan, when we were on a cross-country flight, I'll never forget him rolling out a special piece of carpet on the floor, on the airplane, in front of the emergency exit, and getting down on his hands and knees and going through his prayer ritual. Mahmoud practiced and lived his life based on his religious beliefs 100%. I don't have a problem with that. Okay? I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. I have a problem with the people that say one thing and do another. Mahmoud did his job. He was respected by his teammates. He was liked by his teammates. He was supremely talented. He was quiet. He went about his business, and he played hard. It's fine with me. Fine with me. If you have your beliefs that lead you to this path and you're not hurting anybody, I have no problem with that. No problem at all. I had no problem, and nobody else had a problem with it. Nobody. Curry said on a podcast today how he doesn't have much longer, probably a few more years. Well, yeah, I mean, can't play forever, right? Did any of the Lakers players or management ever show love to the Kings, or was it all rivalry hate? It was all rivalry hate. All rivalry. Where can you find my rants? Well, I do my rants every day on my website, grantnapier.com, or if you don't like that.com, or on Apple or Spotify, wherever you have your favorite podcast, you can follow me. Again, grantnapier.com, if you don't like that.com, Apple, Spotify. I put out rants almost every day, and my other rants that are archived. Some of them are on YouTube. Not all of them, some of them. What's Sean Salisbury up to? I just talked to Sean the other day. All right. That time of year is almost here. Can't wait. Love Sean. I'm in constant contact with Sean. Channel 31, where the Kings hold court. Who remembers? I remember. Yeah. Yep. Oh boy, those were memories. That's good stuff right there. Good stuff. All right. Time to wrap up the show. Appreciate you all. Thank you very much. I can't wait for preseason football games where we can talk about at least, wow, we're getting close. And you never know what else can happen. All right. I'll end this. Do I think Jerry Jones is part of the mess for the Cowboys? I think he is the mess for the Dallas Cowboys. Thank you. Talk to you soon. Stay safe, everybody. Bye-bye now.